shot in a house that I had in Holland Park. And I think I met Billy and all the Bromley contingent in Chelsea. And because he's, you know, he's very cute and he was an aspiring musician and punk, I just sort of asked him to come because on the same day, Debbie Harry was going to come to my house. So I just, you know, put up a different background. So this was probably one of the earlier pictures from.
So what year was that?
1976.
76.
Yeah.
Just as they were all starting out.
All starting out. So I think the value in the photographs that I've done of the punk time was the early genesis where everyone, we were all kids, and there was an innocence and a real desire not only to find your true self, but to do something. You know, I mean, for instance, there's a photograph not here of Chrissie Hynde. I mean, she was learning how to play the guitar. She was in a band called the Moore's Murderers. She wasn't even a singer. And then, literally a year and a half later, or 2 years later, maybe a year, she formed the Pretenders.
Yeah, top of the charts.
Top of the charts, and you know, I'm sure. I think isn't she in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in America and all of that?
She's playing the Palladium at the moment.
She's a great girl.
Yeah.
Definitely. This photograph is of Gabby Delgado, and I can't remember how I was introduced to Daph. I think maybe it was the record label that reached out to me. This was shot in the 80s. I remember saying to the record label, well, I don't really know this band, DAF. And I said, is there a possibility to hear the music? Because when I do photography, when I do a session, I'd like to get a feeling of the music. So I either try to visually interpret the music into the visuals, and so there's somehow a connection, or you get a feeling. This particular image was done later, and for I think Gabby's solo album. And during the 80s, photographically, I was working with different films, different cameras, different formats, playing with light. For me, it was a very creative time, like a lot of the other people that were either my peers, my contemporaries, and we were all trying to do something different. This one was shot in like 1980, I think, 80, and it was the very beginning of Public Image. So John had left the Sex Pistols, and this was the entranceway to his apartment, his flat in London. And it was a rather big flat, but this was the entrance, and there were coats hanging here. And I just saw this red coat, and I just instantly, with all of the great graphics, and I think he had obviously just bought a Sony TV or something. But I this is a kind of favorite image of mine. I think it's very strong.
That's great.
This one of Susie was done for the Face magazine, and I would have to say the Face sort of launched my career. And I had met Nick Logan, I guess, when he was involved with Smash Hits, and even before with the NME. But the Face was actually built from his family kitchen, and all the people that he had known were kind of no one volunteered, but Nick didn't have very much money. He didn't pay very much for photo shoots or writing, but he had some of the best people working for him, I think. Or he had the ability of allowing people who had energy, ideas, and talent to show what they can do. And then the face was the vehicle for that. And I remember Neville Brody, who was the designer. Neville would say, you know, they would have to put together the magazine in a week, and things would change on a daily basis. They'd have an idea for something, then they scrap it. It was almost like a newspaper, except Nick had a visual sensibility, and so it had to be done in a certain way. And then Neville added that incredible typography and graphics, and he kind of pushed it. I think we all sort of pushed things in a direction, rather Nick being like some English magazines, very conservative and afraid to take risks. Nick, on the other hand, because it was his idea, and he would just allow all of these people to generate a kind of energy, which is why I think in February of next year, there's the National Portrait Gallery, I think I mentioned this, are putting on an exhibition on The Face, the magazine, and it's called The Face, A Cultural Shift. And it just changed magazines, not only in England, but around the world. And I suddenly started getting assignments from Vienna. I worked for Vienna Inn, and then the people from Vienna came to Germany, and they started Tempo magazine. And Tempo was like the Face magazine here in Germany, I think. But this one of Susie was my conception, because she to me looked like a beautiful kabuki dancer. And I sort of thought that Lloyd Johnson, who had a shop on the King's Road, had just suddenly gone from secondhand clothes to designing a whole range of new clothes. And one of the ranges of clothes was to do with Japanese. I have not a clue what this says, but it was a kind of visual statement. And I just borrowed a whole load of clothes, did the styling. She did her own makeup, and she, you know, is amazing to look at anyway. And I think it made the cover of the magazine, not this particular image, but I think that it's one of the important sort of face shoots that I did. So
with the sort of just, you know, the red, black, and the white, and that's it. It's just, yeah.
It's strong.
Yeah.
It's very graphic and it's very strong, and you know, and because I don't remember her being very vocal, or we didn't really kind of communicate very much. Sometimes on a photo shoot, depending on the time I have, who I'm doing it for, I might only have an hour, but I try to set up my light or vaguely know what it is I'm doing. This, I set up the lights, she came, I told her what I had in mind, she kind of looked at things. It's hardly any verbal communication. It was, she kind of understood what she had to do, and the camera clearly loves her, you know, so for me it was a very easy assignment. The same with John Lydon. He is brilliant to photograph because he's a chameleon, he has great style, and he just knows how to act in front and project in front of the camera. Some other bands, on the other hand, don't have that same sort of
Can you name names?
Paul Weller.
I've met Susan before. She's a lovely person.
This was
people think she's a bitch or
this was done on the rooftop in Islington. I had the opportunity of meeting Leland Childers, the photographer, in America, and he was, I believe, working for Main Man, and he was the press officer for David Bowie on the Ziggy Stardust tour. I think he shared that with Cherry Vanilla. But anyway, he was a larger-than-life, lovely man. And when he came to England with Blondie, and this was Blondie's first tour, he rang me up and said, "Oh, Blondie are playing, do you want to come down? Cherry is there." And it was sort of like a coming together of all the people from this Bowie tour. And I went, enjoyed the concert, went backstage, and then Lee said, "We're all going to a party in Islington. Debbie's coming," and so I went along. And I just thought, well, this is a moment, an opportunity to take photographs. I can't remember exactly, because it was a very long time ago, why I thought it would be a good idea to go up on the roof. And so it was in the autumn, so it was a little chilly. But she's another one, she's a gift to photograph. And I particularly like this series of pictures I did with her, because there was no styling. That's Debbie and her own way of projecting herself. This picture was for Dolly's car, and that's Peter Murphy from Bauhaus and Mick Karn from Japan. And I've known the guys in Japan and had photographed them before. And Mick was kind of a friend. And I had also met Peter Murphy and thought he was a wonderful person to photograph. He has this extraordinary persona, but he's very sensitive. He's very quietly spoken, although when you kind of see him on stage, he's a completely different person. And they kind of told me that they wanted to do this very stylized image. And so it was based on a sort of surreal moment. So they both came in these suits, and I created this sort of table. And I think it was successful, this shoot. Sadly, Mick has passed away. But I think Peter Murphy's Bauhaus is still flourishing, and I think he's doing very well. This shoot was a live session that I did really for the rich kids. And when the rich kids were just about to, Glenn had left the Pistols, they set up the rich kids, and for some reason, I don't know, he obviously was invited by Glenn to come up on stage and gig with them. So it was just before, like a couple of weeks before he went to America. So it has some historic significance, I think. And I think it captures that Sid Vicious punk attitude. So if we want to go around here. This seems to be like an early Clash and a punk corner. That's a photograph I did in the rehearsal studios up in Camden, in London, and again, the Clash were style gifts. I mean, there was no stylist. This was before there was a press officer. This was before stylists, makeup, and they just were, amazingly cool. And Paul being artistic, but they all had had a way about them, but he apparently sort of designed their clothes and he did their backgrounds, and that background is a Paul Simonon painting. So this was very early. This was done in the inside of Sex on the King's Road of Jordan. And I included this because even though she wasn't a musician, she was clearly the icon of punk. And I think some of you have met her, and I remember going there and being intimidated by her because she was just larger than life. And we didn't interact very much, and I was slightly, I think, frightened to interact with her. But later on, I did a photo shoot when she was older, and I realized that you mustn't judge a book by its cover, because she was so lovely and so sweet and so open-hearted that I obviously, way back when, I misjudged her. But again, she had her own sense and confidence and style, as you see here. And this was the inside of Sex. This picture was done, I think this was done in the ICA, which was the first time I ever saw the Clash. And it was, you know, I think that the whole punk sound was just so astonishing that people were just not only captivated by it, but they were sort of dazzled by the visuals of the boys. And he looked so good, anyway.